Today, I'm bringing you a $50 partner pairing and mono blue featuring Siani, Eye of the Storm, and Eligeth, Crossroad Augur. So, what is this deck trying to do? We want to use Siani's ability to attack with flyers, scry, and then with Eligeth on the battlefield, turn all those scry triggers into card draw. Then we'll use a few cards whose power and toughness are equal to the cards in hand to beat down our opponents or drain them all down at once. As always, I've got the deck broken up into its core elements, and the full deck list is in the description below. Starting off, we got Ramp. We have two commanders and neither one of them is what I would call cheap to cast. But even with our budget, we still managed to pack this deck full of powerful staples like Arcane Signet and Soul Ring. These two being an automatic include in just about every deck these days. Then we got Midnight Clock, which is a mana rock and potential card draw if it sticks around on the battlefield long enough. Up next, there's Mind Stone, Everflowing Chalice, and Sky Diamond. And as a quick aside, I want to talk about High Tide for a moment. This card lets us tap our islands for an additional mana and can lead to some explosive early game turns if it's in our opener. Or if we happen to draw into it later on in the game, we can flood our opponents in value. Up next is Protection. We're going to need all of it we can get because once the other players see us drawing cards left, right, and center, they're going to want to put a stop to it. But we're not going to let them using cards like Mirror Shield, Curator's Ward, and Essir, Warding Familiar. Mirror Shield is going to give one of our commanders hexproof and the added ability of not being affected by Death Touchers. Curator's Ward is going to also give one of our commanders hexproof, and Essir is going to give both of our commanders Ward 3. But we're not stopping there. We also got cards that'll let us 1-for-1 our opponents and keep our commanders safe using cards like Dive Down, Cradle of Safety, and Geist Wave. Dive Down and Cradle of Safety granting hexproof until end of turn, and Geist Wave can bounce one of our commanders back to our hand if it's going to get caught up in a board wipe. And if all else fails, we still got Counterspell, Dissolve, and Lofty Denial. And we even managed to fit in mass removal cards like River's Rebuke, Flood of Tears, and Inscription of Insight. River's Rebuke bounces all non-land permanents target player controls to their hand, letting us single out who's ever ahead and send him back to the Stone Age. Flood of Tears lets us return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. But if we put 4 of our own permanents back, we can put 1 back from our hand onto the battlefield. And then there's Inscription of Insight. If we pay the kicker cost, we can return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hands, scry 2, then draw 2. Target player can create a XX blue illusion creature token where X is the number of cards in their hand. Now, let's talk about everyone's favorite section, card draw. The whole reason why I even made this deck in the first place. Once we slam down our commander, every spell we cast that has the word scry in it is basically going to be replaced with the word draw. So let's say we have a card like Tamiyo's Epiphany. This card will literally read, just pay 4 mana, draw 4, then draw 2 cards. So we've packed this deck full of cards that are going to let us scry. Cards like Ugin's Insight, Preordain, and Eyes Everywhere. And with Eyes Everywhere being an enchantment, if our commander's out on the battlefield, it's going to draw us 2 cards at the beginning of our upkeep. So once we draw all those cards, how do we not just end up discarding all that card advantage on our end step? By not having a maximum hand size. We've jam-packed this deck full of cards like Folio Fancies, Spellbook, Thought Vessel, Wizard Class, Vincer's Journal, and Library of Lang. Side note, Library of Lang has an oracle text that reads, you have no maximum hand size, and if an effect would cause you to discard a card, discard it, but you may put it on top of your library instead of in your graveyard. Okay, so we've slammed down both of our commanders, we've got no maximum hand size, and our hand is chock full of good stuff. How are we going to win the game from here? I'll tell you, either by flying in and killing our opponents, or by killing them with big beaters. We can even drain their life totals down to 0. Using Psychosis Crawler. Psychosis Crawler's power and toughness are equal to the cards in our hand. And whenever we draw a card, each opponent's going to lose 1 life. Using this ability in combination with all the card draw we're going to have, we're going to be able to drain all 3 of our opponents down to 0. And if that doesn't work, we can beat them to death with cards like Body of Knowledge and Stormgeist. Both creatures' power and toughness are going to be equal to the amount of cards in our hand. Body of Knowledge is going to make it so we don't have a maximum hand size, and whenever he's dealt damage, you can draw that many cards, making him even more stronger as the game goes on. And with Stormgeist, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we can draw a card. And when all else fails, who you gonna call? Nezahal, Primal Tide. This 7/7 can't be countered, gives us no maximum hand size, and whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, we can draw a card. Then, if we discard 3 cards, we can exile Nezahal and return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And that's it, everyone. A $50 mono blue, draw all the cards you want, partner pair, commander deck. If you like this video, consider subscribing. And if you're feeling even more generous, you can gift me with a like, and I'll see you all in the next one.